In the heart of Italy, where the rolling hills of Tuscany meet the fertile plains of Emilia-Romagna, a remarkable story unfolded during World War II. It was a time when the world was engulfed in conflict, and the fate of nations hung in the balance. On September 8, 1943, Italy's announcement of an armistice with the Allied forces marked a significant turning point, igniting a wave of uncertainty that swept across the nation. For the rural communities nestled within these picturesque landscapes, the news was met with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The armistice signaled a potential to the war, yet it also transformed former allies into occupiers, as German forces swiftly moved to assert their control over Italian territories. Life in these agrarian communities had long been dictated by the rhythms of the seasons. Farmers, deeply rooted in their land, cultivated crops that had sustained their families for generations. The fields, adorned with golden wheat and vibrant vineyards, were not just sources of sustenance, they were the lifeblood of the community. However, as the war encroached upon their daily existence, the familiar landscape morphed into a theater of fear and suspicion. The presence of German troops, once seen as allies, became a constant reminder of the peril that now loomed over their lives. The armistice, rather than bringing relief, intensified the anxiety that gripped these communities. The German occupiers, emboldened by their newfound authority, imposed strict measures to maintain control, and any act of defiance was met with swift and brutal retribution. Rumors began to circulate about Allied airmen who had been shot down and were now stranded behind enemy lines. Initially dismissed as mere whispers, these tales soon became undeniable realities that echoed through the villages. The sight of young men, far from home and caught in the throes of war, resonated deeply with the villagers, many of whom had sons and brothers serving in the military. When the stories of downed pilots spread, the villagers found themselves grappling with a moral dilemma. The German occupiers had made it clear that any assistance rendered to the enemy would be met with severe punishment, including execution. The risks were palpable, and the stakes were high. Yet, amidst the fear, a seed of empathy began to take root. Conversations that had once been whispered in hushed tones grew more frequent, as the villagers contemplated the unthinkable, extending a hand to those in need, even at great personal risk. The decision to aid the Allied pilots was not made lightly. It was a choice born of necessity, shaped by the harsh realities of war. The villagers understood that their actions could have dire consequences, not only for themselves but for their entire community. Yet, as the days turned into weeks, the resolve to act grew stronger. Farmers, accustomed to the cycles of planting and harvest, began to sow the seeds of resistance. They recognized that their humanity transcended the boundaries of nationality and allegiance, and in that recognition lay the foundation for a quiet rebellion. In this climate of uncertainty, the villagers faced a profound moral dilemma. The war had drawn stark lines between friend and foe, yet the boundaries of loyalty were not always clear. The decision to help the pilots was a testament to the enduring spirit of compassion that thrived even in the darkest of times. As they grappled with their fears, the villagers found strength in unity, forging bonds that would sustain them through the trials to come. The initial disbelief that had greeted the news of stranded pilots slowly transformed into a quiet determination. The villagers, once skeptical of the Allied forces' ability to liberate them, began to see the pilots as symbols of hope. In the face of adversity, they chose to stand on the side of humanity, defying the oppressive forces that sought to divide them. It was a choice that would alter the course of their lives and leave a mark on history. When the autumn of 1943 descended upon Italy, the skies above were filled with the ominous sounds of war. Allied bombers, relentless in their pursuit of strategic targets, flew missions deep into enemy territory. The pilots, brave men tasked with dangerous sorties, faced the ever-present risk of being shot down. Many found themselves parachuting into unfamiliar landscapes, far from the safety of their squadrons. It was within this context that a network of local farmers began to coalesce, driven by a profound sense of duty and humanity. The formation of this clandestine network was a remarkable feat of courage and ingenuity. Communication was key, yet fraught with danger. The farmers, adept at navigating the intricacies of rural life, employed a variety of methods to share information discreetly. Messages were passed under the cover of night, hidden within the folds of clothing or whispered in the privacy of barns. The stakes were high, and the need for secrecy was paramount. The farmers understood that the German occupiers were vigilant, and any slip could lead to dire consequences. The network's primary objective was clear: to locate and shelter downed pilots, providing them with the means to survive until they could be safely evacuated. The farmers, familiar with the terrain and adept at evading detection, devised ingenious plans to hide the airmen. Barns, wine cellars, and underground shelters became sanctuaries, offering refuge from the ever-watchful eyes of German patrols. Each hiding place was carefully chosen, its location known only to a select few. The farmers relied on their intimate knowledge of the land to navigate the complexities of concealment, utilizing natural features such as dense thickets and rocky outcrops to shield their guests from prying eyes. The decision to aid the pilots was not without its challenges. The farmers were acutely aware of the risks involved. German forces, determined to maintain control, had intensified their efforts to root out any form of resistance. Informants, motivated by fear or the promise of reward, posed an ever-present threat. The farmers knew that a single misstep could unravel their carefully constructed network. Yet, despite these dangers, they remained resolute in their mission, driven by a sense of moral obligation to assist those in peril. The pilots, often weary and traumatized by their experiences, relied heavily on the resourcefulness of their hosts. The farmers, accustomed to the rigors of rural life, found ways to provide for their unexpected guests. Rationing and scarcity were daily realities, yet they managed to share what little they had. Meals were simple but sustaining, consisting of rustic bread, cheese, and whatever vegetables could be harvested from the gardens. The bonds forged over shared bread and wine transcended the boundaries of language and nationality, creating a sense of camaraderie that would prove vital in the days to come. By the time the days turned into weeks, the network grew more organized. The farmers, united by a common purpose, developed a system of signals and codes to communicate. A lantern placed in a window, a piece of cloth tied to a fence post, each gesture carried a message, a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of those who dared to defy the odds. The network, though fragile, became a lifeline for the pilots, offering a glimmer of hope in a world overshadowed by war. The call to action had been answered, and the villages found themselves at the heart of a quiet resistance. Their efforts, though small in scale, were monumental in impact. In choosing to aid the pilots, they had taken a stand against tyranny, asserting their agency in a conflict that sought to strip them of their autonomy. It was a choice that would test their resolve and shape the course of their lives in ways they could never have imagined. The historical context surrounding these events is crucial to understanding the motivations and actions of the Italian villages. The Italian resistance, which gained momentum following the armistice, was characterized by a diverse coalition of groups united in their opposition to fascism and the German occupation. Many Italians risked their lives to shelter Allied pilots, reflecting a complex interplay of fear, empathy, and resistance against the oppressive forces that sought to control their lives. The actions of these villages were not isolated incidents but part of a broader movement that sought to reclaim agency in a time of chaos. In the face of overwhelming odds, the farmers of Tuscany and Emilia-Romagna demonstrated remarkable courage and resilience. Their willingness to aid the Allied pilots was a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity that can flourish even in the darkest of times. While the war continued to rage on, the bonds forged in those hidden cellars and barns would serve as a powerful reminder of the capacity for compassion amidst conflict, a legacy that would resonate long after the final gunshots of the war had faded into history. During the harsh winter of 1943 settled over the Italian countryside, the farmers and their hidden charges faced mounting challenges. The cold, unyielding and pervasive, seeped into every corner of their makeshift shelters. The pilots, unaccustomed to the rural conditions, found themselves reliant on the resourcefulness of their hosts to endure the bitter months. Yet, it was not the elements alone that posed a threat. The ever-present danger of discovery loomed large, casting a shadow over their clandestine efforts. German patrols, relentless in their pursuit of control, increased their presence in the rural areas. The farmers, well versed in the art of evasion, employed a variety of tactics to avoid detection. Paths through the woods, known only to locals, became vital routes for moving supplies and information. The pilots, instructed in the nuances of rural life, learned to blend into their surroundings, adopting the rhythms and routines of their hosts. Despite these precautions, the risk of betrayal was ever present. The farmers knew that a single misstep could unravel their carefully constructed network. Local informants, driven by fear or the lure of reward, posed a constant threat. Each knock at the door, each unfamiliar face, was met with a mixture of apprehension and resolve. The farmers, though wary, remained steadfast in their commitment to protect the pilots. The pilots, for their part, faced their own struggles. The trauma of their experiences weighed heavily upon them, and the isolation of their hiding places only served to compound their sense of dislocation. Yet, within the confines of their shelters, they found solace in the camaraderie that developed with their hosts. The farmers, though burdened by their own hardships, extended a hand of friendship, offering a glimpse of humanity amidst the chaos of war. The winter months tested the limits of endurance for both the farmers and the pilots. Supplies, already scarce, became even more difficult to obtain. The farmers, skilled in the art of improvisation, found ways to stretch their resources, ensuring that no one went without. Meals were shared in silence, the flickering light of a candle casting shadows on the walls, a testament to the quiet resilience that defined their existence. As the days grew shorter and the nights longer, the tension within the hidden networks intensified. Each passing day brought with it the possibility of discovery, a reality that weighed heavily on the minds of all involved. Yet, despite the risks, the farmers remained resolute in their mission. Their actions, though fraught with danger, were driven by a profound sense of duty and humanity. The confrontation with the realities of war had forged a bond between the farmers and the pilots, a connection that transcended the boundaries of nationality and allegiance. In choosing to aid the pilots, the farmers had taken a stand against the forces of oppression, asserting their agency in a conflict that sought to strip them of their autonomy. It was a choice that would test their resolve and shape the course of their lives in ways they could never have imagined. As the winter deepened, the farmers devised increasingly elaborate strategies to ensure the safety of their guests. They created a system of signals, employing the natural landscape to their advantage. A particular tree, a rock formation, or even the flight patterns of birds became coded messages, alerting the farmers to the presence of German patrols. The pilots, now more attuned to the subtleties of their surroundings, learned to interpret these signs, heightening their awareness of the precariousness of their situation. In one instance, a pilot named Lieutenant James Thompson, who had been shot down over Tuscany, found himself in a particularly vulnerable position. He had been hidden in a cellar beneath the farmhouse of the Rossi family, a place that had become a sanctuary for him over the weeks. One evening, as the family gathered for a meager meal, the sound of boots crunching on gravel outside sent a chill through the air. The farmers exchanged worried glances, their hearts racing at the thought of discovery. In a moment of quick thinking, Mrs. Rossi, a woman of remarkable courage, instructed her children to continue eating as if nothing were amiss. She quietly gestured to James, urging him to remain silent and still. The family's ability to maintain a facade of normalcy was crucial. The German soldiers, accustomed to the routine of rural life, often overlooked the small details that might betray the presence of a hidden pilot. As the soldiers approached the farmhouse, the tension in the air was palpable. The family's laughter and chatter masked the anxiety that gripped them. The soldiers, suspicious but ultimately uninterested in the mundane activities of the farmers, conducted a cursory search of the premises. They poked their heads into the barn, rifled through the hay, and inspected the wine cellar, but they found nothing amiss. After what felt like an eternity, they departed, leaving the Rossi family to exhale a collective sigh of relief. In the aftermath of this close call, the bond between the farmers and the pilots deepened. James, grateful for their unwavering support, began to assist the Rossi family in small ways. He helped with chores, learning the rhythms of farm life, and in turn, the family shared stories of their lives before the war. These exchanges became a source of strength for both the pilots and their hosts, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, human connection could flourish. As the winter dragged on, the farmers faced additional challenges. The scarcity of food became increasingly dire, and the harsh conditions tested their resolve. Rationing was a daily reality, and the farmers had to make difficult choices about how to allocate their dwindling supplies. The pilots, aware of the strain their presence placed on their hosts, insisted on taking less, often offering to go hungry so that the farmers could eat. This selflessness only served to strengthen the ties between them, as they navigated the complexities of survival together. In one particularly harsh week, the farmers banded together to organize a covert mission to procure food. They devised a plan to gather what they could from neighboring farms, pooling their resources to ensure that everyone, including the pilots, had enough to eat. Under the cover of darkness, they moved silently through the fields, gathering vegetables and grains, sharing whispered laughter and camaraderie as they worked. The act of gathering food became a symbol of their collective resistance. Each meal shared in the dim light of the cellar was a testament to their defiance against the oppressive forces that sought to tear them apart. The farmers understood that their actions were not merely about survival. They were acts of rebellion against a regime that sought to dehumanize them. As the winter months wore on, the farmers and pilots found themselves increasingly intertwined. The pilots, once strangers, became part of the fabric of the community. They celebrated small victories together, whether it was a successful evasion of German patrols or the arrival of a new supply of food. These moments of joy, though fleeting, provided a much-needed respite from the harsh realities of war. Yet, the danger was never far from their minds. The farmers remained vigilant, aware that the situation could change in an instant. They continued to refine their methods of concealment, employing new strategies to ensure the safety of their hidden guests. The pilots, too, adapted to their circumstances, learning to navigate the complexities of rural life with increasing skill. As spring approached, the promise of renewal hung in the air, yet the threat of discovery loomed larger than ever. The farmers knew that the arrival of warmer weather would bring increased German patrols, as the occupiers sought to tighten their grip on the countryside. The stakes had never been higher, and the farmers understood that their commitment to protect the pilots would require even greater sacrifices. In this crucible of conflict, the bonds of humanity flourished. The farmers and pilots, united by a common purpose, forged a legacy of resilience and courage that would echo through the annals of history. Their stories, woven together by the threads of compassion and defiance, would serve as a testament to the enduring spirit of those who dared to stand against tyranny. As the first signs of spring began to emerge in early 1944, the atmosphere in the Italian countryside shifted. The once barren fields began to show hints of green, and the promise of new life brought with it a renewed sense of hope. Yet, the specter of war still loomed large, and the farmers, along with their hidden pilots, faced an uncertain future. The risks they had taken to protect these young men were greater than ever, as the German forces intensified their efforts to root out any semblance of resistance. The arrival of spring also marked a turning point in the war. The Allies, buoyed by successes in North Africa and the Pacific, were preparing for a series of offensives that would change the course of the conflict. News of victories reached the farmers through whispered conversations and clandestine messages, igniting a flicker of optimism among the villages. The pilots, too, felt the stirrings of hope, their spirits lifted by the prospect of liberation. However, the path to freedom was fraught with peril. The German occupiers, aware of the growing resistance among the Italian populace, escalated their reprisals against suspected collaborators. The farmers, acutely aware of the dangers, knew that their commitment to sheltering the pilots could have dire consequences. Each passing day brought with it the possibility of discovery, and the tension within their hidden networks reached a boiling point. In the midst of this uncertainty, the farmers devised a plan to facilitate the escape of the pilots. They understood that the time had come for the airmen to leave their makeshift shelters and seek safety with the advancing Allied forces. The farmers, drawing upon their intimate knowledge of the terrain, mapped out a series of routes that would lead the pilots to safety. These paths, known only to the locals, would allow them to navigate the countryside while avoiding German patrols. As the plan took shape, the farmers gathered for a final meeting, their faces etched with determination. They understood the risks involved, but the prospect of liberation fueled their resolve. Each farmer shared their thoughts, their hopes and fears intertwining as they prepared for the next phase of their mission. The pilots, too, felt the weight of the moment, acutely aware that their lives hung in the balance. On the night of the planned escape, the air was thick with tension. The farmers and pilots gathered in the dim light of a barn, the flickering lantern casting long shadows on the walls. The farmers provided the pilots with essential supplies, food, maps, and clothing to help them blend in as they made their way through the countryside. The atmosphere was charged with a mixture of fear and hope, as they prepared to part ways. As they set out into the night, the farmers led the way, their hearts pounding in their chests. The path was fraught with danger, but the knowledge that liberation was within reach propelled them forward. The pilots, guided by their hosts, moved swiftly and silently, their senses heightened as they navigated the darkened landscape. The journey was arduous, and the group had to remain vigilant, constantly aware of the potential for discovery. The farmers employed their knowledge of the land to guide the pilots through hidden paths and secluded routes, avoiding main roads where German patrols were known to operate. Each step brought them closer to safety, yet the anxiety of the unknown loomed large. When dawn began to break, casting a soft light over the fields, the group reached the outskirts of a nearby village. Here, they would part ways, each farmer taking a pilot to a designated safe house where they could rest and regroup before continuing their journey. The moment was bittersweet, filled with both relief and sorrow. The farmers had forged deep connections with the pilots, and the thought of separation weighed heavily on their hearts. With a final embrace, the farmers bid farewell to the pilots, their eyes reflecting a shared understanding of the sacrifices made. The pilots, filled with gratitude, promised to carry the stories of their hosts with them, vowing to honor the bravery and compassion that had sustained them during their darkest days. As the pilots made their way toward safety, the farmers returned to their homes, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that their actions had placed them in jeopardy. The risk of discovery remained ever present, and they understood that the German occupiers would not take kindly to the assistance they had provided. Yet, despite the looming threat, the farmers felt a sense of purpose, knowing that they had played a crucial role in the fight against tyranny. In the days that followed, the farmers continued to live under the shadow of war, their lives forever altered by their experiences. They remained vigilant, aware that the consequences of their actions could come at any moment. The German forces, increasingly paranoid, intensified their patrols, and the farmers braced themselves for the possibility of retribution. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, the farmers found solace in the knowledge that they had made a difference. The pilots they had sheltered were now on their way to freedom, and the bonds forged in the crucible of conflict would endure. The stories of their bravery would echo through the generations, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. As spring blossomed into summer, the tide of the war began to turn decisively in favor of the Allies. The liberation of Italy was on the horizon, and the farmers, though still living in fear, felt a renewed sense of hope. The sacrifices they had made, The risks they had taken had not been in vain. They had stood together against oppression, asserting their humanity in a world that sought to strip it away. In the months that followed, the farmers would witness the arrival of Allied forces, their presence a harbinger of liberation. The joy that erupted in the streets was a culmination of their collective struggle, a celebration of resilience and defiance. The farmers, once mere spectators in a war that had engulfed their lives, emerged as heroes in their own right, their actions a testament to the power of compassion in the face of tyranny. The legacy of those who had hidden the pilots would be etched into the annals of history, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the light of humanity could shine through. The stories of the farmers and the pilots would be passed down through generations, a testament to the enduring spirit of those who dared to stand against oppression, united by a common purpose and an unwavering belief in the power of compassion. As the winter of 1943–1944 dragged on, the resolve of the farmers and the pilots they sheltered faced a critical turning point. The clandestine network, no longer a beacon of hope, stood at the precipice of danger. The German occupiers, increasingly aware of the growing resistance in rural Italy, intensified their efforts to root out any signs of defiance. The stakes had never been higher, and the consequences of discovery loomed ominously over the villages. In the early months of 1944, the situation escalated dramatically. Reports of raids on suspected safe houses began to circulate, sending shockwaves through the community. The farmers, who had formerly felt a sense of solidarity in their mission, grappled with the very real possibility of betrayal. The fear of being discovered was palpable. Whispers of informants echoed through the fields, and the once familiar landscape became a treacherous terrain fraught with peril. The turning point came one fateful night when a German patrol, acting on a tip-off, descended upon a village suspected of harboring Allied pilots. The farmers, alerted by a warning signal, scrambled to hide their guests. In the chaos, some pilots were forced to flee into the surrounding woods, while others were hidden in the depths of cellars and barns. The tension was suffocating, and the air was thick with the scent of fear and uncertainty. As the soldiers combed through the village, the farmers faced an agonizing moral dilemma. They could either protect their hidden guests, risking their own lives and the safety of their families, or they could comply with the occupiers, betraying the very men who had come to symbolize hope and resistance. The choice was not simple. It was a heart-wrenching decision that weighed heavily on their consciences. In the face of this confrontation, many farmers chose to stand firm. They engaged the soldiers in conversation, feigning ignorance and innocence. Some even went so far as to mislead the patrols, directing them away from the hiding places of the pilots. The courage displayed in those moments was a testament to the deep bonds that had formed between the villagers and the airmen. The farmers understood that their actions could lead to severe repercussions, including imprisonment or execution, yet they chose to act with integrity. The consequences of this defiance were swift and brutal. The German forces, frustrated by their inability to uncover the hidden pilots, retaliated against the village. In a show of force, they conducted a series of reprisals, arresting several villagers and executing others as a warning to the community. The brutality of these actions served as a stark reminder of the risks involved in their resistance. Yet, even in the face of such violence, the spirit of defiance remained unbroken. The pilots, witnessing the sacrifices made on their behalf, felt a profound sense of gratitude and guilt. They were acutely aware that their presence had put the villages in danger, and the moral weight of their situation pressed heavily upon them. In the weeks that followed, the farmers and pilots engaged in heartfelt discussions about the nature of sacrifice, loyalty, and the cost of freedom. These conversations, often held in hushed tones, forged an unbreakable bond between them, transcending the barriers of language and culture. As spring approached, the situation in Italy continued to evolve. The Allied forces, buoyed by the courage of the resistance, began to make significant advances in the region. The farmers, emboldened by their acts of defiance, became more involved in the broader resistance movement. They shared intelligence, provided supplies, and even participated in sabotage efforts against German supply lines. The turning point had ignited a fire within the community, transforming them from passive observers into active participants in the struggle for liberation. The consequences of their actions rippled through the countryside, inspiring neighboring villages to join the resistance. The once isolated farmers found themselves part of a larger network of defiance, united by a common purpose. The risks remained high, but the resolve to fight back against oppression grew stronger with each passing day. The turning point marked a profound transformation for both the farmers and the pilots. The moral dilemmas faced during those harrowing nights in hiding had forged a new identity for the villages, one rooted in courage and solidarity. They had chosen to stand on the side of humanity, defying the forces that sought to divide them. The consequences of their actions would reverberate long after the war had ended, shaping their lives and the lives of future generations. While the war progressed into 1944, the aftermath of the farmers' courageous actions began to unfold, revealing the profound transformations that had taken place within the community. The resilience and bravery exhibited during the darkest days of winter had not only altered the course of the lives of the villages but had also left an indelible mark on the broader landscape of resistance in Italy. The liberation of Italy was a slow and arduous process, marked by fierce battles and significant loss. However, the actions of the farmers and their network of support for Allied pilots had contributed to the growing momentum of the resistance movement. As news of their bravery spread, more villages were inspired to join the fight against the German occupiers. The once quiet countryside became a hotbed of activity, with farmers, laborers, and even children rallying together to support the Allied cause. The transformation within the community was palpable. The farmers, who had formerly lived in fear of the occupiers, stood tall, emboldened by their shared experiences and the bonds forged in adversity. They organized themselves into groups, sharing resources and intelligence, and coordinating efforts to sabotage German operations. The sense of camaraderie that had developed between the farmers and the pilots became a cornerstone of their resistance, fostering a spirit of unity that transcended individual fears. As the Allied forces advanced, the villages played a crucial role in providing vital intelligence and support. They guided troops through the countryside, shared information about German troop movements, and assisted in the logistics of supply lines. The farmers, once mere bystanders in the war, had transformed into active participants in the liberation of their homeland. Their actions were not without risk. Many faced reprisals from German forces, and the threat of violence remained ever present. Yet, the resolve to fight for their freedom outweighed the fear of retribution. The aftermath of their resistance also brought about a profound change in the villagers' perception of themselves and their place in the world. The moral dilemmas they had faced in choosing to aid the pilots instilled a sense of purpose and agency that had been absent before the war. They had become more than just farmers. They were now defenders of their community, protectors of their values, and champions of freedom. This newfound identity would shape their lives long after the war had ended. As the Allied forces liberated towns and cities across Italy, the farmers celebrated not only their freedom but also the bonds they had formed with the pilots they had sheltered. Many of the airmen, having survived the harrowing ordeal of war, sought to reconnect with their Italian hosts after the conflict. Letters were exchanged, and some pilots returned to visit the villages that had offered them refuge. These reunions were filled with emotion, as both parties reflected on the shared experiences that had forever altered their lives. The transformation of the farmers and their community extended beyond the immediate aftermath of the war. The moral courage they had displayed in the face of oppression became a source of inspiration for future generations. The stories of their bravery were passed down, becoming a part of the local folklore that celebrated the resilience of the human spirit. The villagers, once defined by their struggles, were now celebrated as heroes who had stood against tyranny. In the years that followed, the enduring legacy of the farmers' actions continued to resonate. They became active participants in the rebuilding of their communities, advocating for peace and reconciliation in the post-war era. The bonds forged during the war served as a foundation for a new way of life, one that emphasized cooperation, understanding, and shared humanity. The lessons learned in the crucible of conflict shaped their values and informed their interactions with others, fostering a spirit of compassion that would endure. The aftermath of the farmers' resistance was not without its challenges. The scars of war ran deep, and the process of healing was slow. Yet, the villagers approached the future with a renewed sense of hope, buoyed by the knowledge that they had the power to effect change. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, united by their shared experiences and the belief that they could shape their destiny. In the transformation of the farmers and their community was a testament to the enduring power of human connection. Their willingness to stand together in the face of adversity had not only saved lives but had also forged a legacy of courage and compassion that would inspire generations to come. The story of their resistance, rooted in the moral dilemmas of war, became a beacon of hope, illuminating the path toward a brighter future. As the dust of World War II settled over Europe, the stories of bravery and compassion that emerged from the conflict began to take on new significance. The actions of the Italian farmers who risked their lives to shelter Allied pilots became emblematic of the resilience of the human spirit in the face of tyranny. The legacy of their courage would resonate far beyond the war, shaping the narrative of post-war Italy and influencing generations to come. In the immediate aftermath of the war, Italy faced the daunting task of rebuilding. The devastation wrought by years of conflict left scars on the landscape and the psyche of its people. Yet, amidst the rubble, there emerged a renewed sense of identity and purpose. The stories of those who had defied the odds to protect their fellow human beings became a source of inspiration, fostering a collective memory that would guide the nation as it navigated the challenges of reconstruction. The farmers' actions were not merely acts of defiance against the occupying forces, they were also a testament to the power of empathy and solidarity. In a country that had been deeply divided by fascism and war, these stories of cooperation between ordinary citizens and foreign soldiers served as a reminder of the shared humanity that transcended borders. The narratives of the pilots who had been hidden and cared for by their Italian hosts began to circulate, becoming part of the broader tapestry of resistance against oppression. As Italy transitioned from a monarchy to a republic in 1946, the role of the resistance, including the actions of those who sheltered Allied pilots, was increasingly recognized. The new government sought to foster a sense of unity and reconciliation, and the stories of bravery became integral to the national narrative. Commemorative events were held, honoring the sacrifices made by both the partisans and the civilians who had aided them. Monuments were erected, and memorials dedicated to the resistance became focal points for communities to reflect on the shared history. The legacy of these acts of compassion extended beyond Italy's borders. In the years following the war, the stories of the Italian farmers and the Allied pilots they sheltered began to capture the attention of historians and filmmakers alike. Documentaries and books chronicling these acts of bravery emerged, ensuring that the sacrifices made during the war would not be forgotten. The narratives served as powerful reminders of the capacity for good in a world often overshadowed by violence and hatred. One notable example is the 1996 film The English Patient, which, while fictional, drew inspiration from the real-life experiences of pilots and their Italian hosts. The film's themes of love, loss, and the impact of war resonated with audiences worldwide, reigniting interest in the stories of those who had lived through the conflict. Such portrayals helped to humanize the war, allowing future generations to connect with the past on a personal level. In addition to cultural representations, the enduring legacy of the Italian farmers' courage also found its way into educational curricula. Schools began to incorporate lessons on the resistance and the role of civilians in wartime, emphasizing the importance of moral choices in the face of adversity. These narratives served as powerful teaching tools, encouraging young people to reflect on their own values and the impact of their actions in society. As the decades passed, The stories of the Italian farmers and the Allied pilots became part of a larger discourse on humanitarianism and the moral imperatives of war. The lessons learned from their experiences were echoed in discussions about contemporary conflicts, reminding us that even in the darkest times, acts of kindness and courage can shine through. The legacy of these individuals became a beacon of hope, illustrating that the human spirit can triumph over fear and oppression. In the 21st century, the commemoration of these acts of bravery continues to evolve. Annual events are held in various towns across Tuscany and Emilia-Romagna, where local communities gather to honor the memory of those who risked everything to help their fellow human beings. These gatherings serve not only as a tribute to the past, but also as a reminder of the ongoing struggle for justice and compassion in a world still grappling with the consequences of war. The stories of the Italian farmers and the Allied pilots have also found a place in international dialogues about war and peace. Organizations dedicated to promoting human rights and humanitarian efforts often reference these narratives as examples of how individuals can make a difference, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The legacy of these acts of courage serves as a reminder that the fight for justice is not confined to the battlefield. It is a daily struggle that requires the commitment of individuals to stand up for what is right. Furthermore, the impact of these stories extends to the realm of diplomacy and international relations. The bonds forged between the Italian farmers and the Allied pilots during the war have been recognized as a symbol of cooperation and understanding between nations. In an era marked by geopolitical tensions, these narratives serve as a reminder of the importance of empathy and dialogue in fostering peaceful relations. The legacy of compassion that emerged from the war continues to inspire efforts to bridge divides and promote mutual understanding among diverse cultures. As we reflect on the enduring legacy of the Italian families who hid Allied pilots for 48 days, we are reminded of the profound impact that individual actions can have on the course of history. Their courage in the face of adversity not only saved lives, but also laid the groundwork for a narrative of hope and resilience that continues to resonate today. In a world often fraught with division and conflict, their story serves as a powerful testament to the enduring power of compassion and the human spirit. In conclusion, the enduring legacy of the Italian farmers who sheltered Allied pilots during World War II is a story of courage, empathy, and the enduring bonds of humanity. Their actions, born out of a profound sense of duty and compassion, have left an indelible mark on history. As we commemorate their bravery, we are reminded of the importance of standing up for what is right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The lessons learned from their experiences continue to inspire us to cultivate a world where kindness and solidarity prevail over fear and division.